It broke my heart to hear my friend say, well, sure, Doug, good things happen to a lot of people. It just never happens to me. Some of you have had deep personal experience, struggles with the problem of evil. It's not just a theory, it's grief that you have personally struggled with. And so you need more than just the 3 little videos that I have done to talk about this. And so I'd like to recommend a book entitled Prayer in the Night by Tish Harrison Warren. Prayer in the Night by Tish Harrison Warren. It's not a theology book. It's not a book about theodicy. It's actually a book about prayer. And the focus of the book is on what's known as the Evening Compline from the Book of Common Prayer. And some of you may know this prayer much better than I do, but over the last few months, Cheryl and I have memorized this prayer, and this prayer is the last thing we do before we go to bed at night. It's just 52 little words that are part of this prayer. But these words have become pregnant with all of the people and the places and the struggles that live in our hearts that we need to give over to the Lord so that we can go to bed and sleep at night. The prayer goes like this. Keep watch, dear Lord, with those who work and watch and weep this night. Give your angels charge over those who sleep. Tend to the sick, Lord Christ. Give rest to the weary. Bless the dying. Soothe the suffering. Pity, have compassion for the afflicted and the addicted. And shield the joyous. And all for your love's sake. Amen. It's a pretty good way to end the evening. In the opening pages of her book, Tish is describing her near-death experience as a result of one of several miscarriages that she faced. Lying in the emergency room and bleeding profusely, she asks her husband to help her pray the Evening Compline prayer. She explains it like this. I was not trying to call down my sky fairy to come and save me, but I dared to believe, listen carefully, I dared to believe that God was right there in the midst of my chaos and pain, whatever was going to come. Can I repeat that? I dared to believe that God was right there in the midst of my chaos and pain, no matter what was going to happen the rest of the night. I was reaching for a reality, a story that was larger and more enduring than what I was feeling in that brief, awful moment in time. My friends, that's about the most healthy explanation and response to the problem of evil that I've ever heard. So one night in class, I'm trying to teach about theodicy and how do we understand this unexplainable tragedy that happens in our lives. And Allison surprised me with her vulnerability when she just said right out loud before I could stop her, when I was 16 years old, my uncle raped me. And the only way that I have ever been able to understand that violent, evil act is that God must have turned his back on me the way he turned his back on Jesus when Jesus was on the cross carrying the weight of the sin of the world. My dear friends, I was trying to be as careful and considerate and compassionate as I knew how to be as I responded Allison, which of course is not her real name. Allison, I can't imagine God turning his back on you at the greatest time of need you have ever faced in your entire life. Instead of turning his back on you, he was right there with you, crying with you, agonizing over this trauma, and doing the best he could to try to get your uncle to quit using his free will to abuse you. Well, Allison got really quiet. And truthfully, I didn't know if I had helped her or if I had just demolished the theological construct that she had used to explain this to herself over the past 30 years. And finally, slowly, Allison said, "Dr. Samples, I like that explanation. It's good to know that God was there with me instead of turning his back on me. Thank you, Dr. Samples. That actually changes everything. Thank you." Friends, the theodicy, the problem of evil, these are big, complicated issues. And as I said last week, I have attempted to be very practical rather than academic and theological and philosophical about all of this, but I hope these videos have been helpful. As we close today, if you are needing more help with your own personal dark night of the soul, let me again suggest Tish Harrison Warren's book, Prayer in the Night. I really do think it would be helpful. Thank you so much for the privilege of your time. God bless.